To quote the late Anthony Bourdain, in this town, there are winners and there are losers. And Lord knows, I've been both. I remember the first time I came to Vegas back in 1993. I was amazed by the size of the casinos. I'd seen the ones in Reno, but nothing could compare to the MGM Grand, the Luxor, Excalibur, all of what Vegas had to offer. I came back in 2003 to go to college at UNLV. My plan was to play on the UNLV baseball team. I wasn't 100% sure about my game going into tryouts. I did feel I could hit at a college level, for average anyway. Well, it turned out that about all but 4 people, which amounted to over 30 who tried out, were cut before you even got to hit at UNLV. Seems like kind of a mistake. Might be passing up a pretty important part of the game. I considered that my first bad beat in Las Vegas. After only one semester at UNLV, I left. Looking back on it, I find it hard to believe that I lived in Vegas just months after Chris Moneymaker won the main event and ignited the poker boom. I never would have thought in a million years that poker would one day change my life. In 2010, I'd been playing poker for a year and a half. My buddy and I made the decision to drive down to Vegas and play in the World Series of Poker. I still remember that experience, walking into the Rio for the first time during the World Series. I think that's an experience that every poker player has had now, and a feeling that none of them will ever forget. I've still never experienced the feeling of cashing in the World Series, or any tournament for that matter, but I'll never forget that first feeling of showing up, ultimately making a pretty deep run and busting just before the bubble. It was that trip in 2010 that made me fall in love with Vegas, despite my results at the World Series. The main reason was poker, but I just liked the feel of being in Vegas, the vibe of the town, the energy, the desert scenery. I gained an appreciation for all of it, something I never had back in 2003. And now with the Golden Knights, well, it just takes it to a whole nother level with me. Yeah, there are downsides: the heat, the traffic, the resort fees, the cigarette smoke, which one day will be outlawed. Should have happened decades ago, like in California. But despite all that, I'm proud to say that I still love Las Vegas, Nevada. And as long as I still enjoy it, I will never stop making the drive down here. Here at the Wynn, I still kind of miss the old room where they rate less, but I will say this new room sure is nice. This place definitely sets the standard for fancy. I did stay here once, but that's only because I got a friend who's considerably older than me and has a lot more money than me and was willing to pay. All right, wrapping up a session here at the Wynn. Not a very good game, that's to say the least. Line up pretty bad, as you see here. From time to time, lately the Venetian games, to me, have been better than the Wynn games, even though they do take that stupid jackpot drop. First hand, I open ace-queen over a limp to 35. Flipper makes the call. Flop comes ace-ace-3 with 2 diamonds. I go ahead and bet 50, thinking that if he has an ace, I can get his whole stack. Unfortunately for me, he doesn't. He makes the fold, and I win a small one there. Next hand, we get an open to 20 from the hijack, and 1 call from the cutoff. I'm in the small blind with pocket aces. I make it 65. The big blind cold calls And of course, the other two guys call as well. Flop is king 8-6 with 2 clubs. I bet 110, and the big blind insta-raises me to 240. The others fold, and I think it's a little bit weak here to just throw aces away against an unknown. I make the call. And it's just a little too bright and windy out there for my liking. So I make the call, and the turn comes a brick. And I check, and he bets 400. And it's always interesting, you know, the simple question of, you know, when you have aces and you get a flop that's king high like this one, and when someone's putting a bunch of heat on you, are they overplaying a king or do they actually have the set? As is the case here, very hard to know because I've never played with the guy before. But generally speaking, I know in Reno, they're going to have you beat here. So I went back and forth with it a while. Ultimately, I ended up laying the hand down. And a little bit later on, he told me that he had pocket 8s. So let's hope he's telling the truth. Later on, I opened jacks to 20. And the cutoff re-raises me to 60. I'm pretty short stacked at this point after that aces hand, and I actually lost a couple of smaller hands after that too. So my plan was to get it all in on a good flop for me here. Because I know if I go all in now, he's not folding. So I go ahead and just call, and the flop is pretty good for me. It comes 10 high. I believe 10-6 deuce. I check. He bets 110, and I go all in for my remaining stack. He quickly calls, board runs out, and I'm good. So I double up there to about 400. Shortly after, I end up losing a hand where I have pocket jacks again, and a guy calls me with ace-3 offsuit and flops trip aces. And I lost a few small pots after that to book a $525 loss. Wasn't really feeling that good about the game the entire time, so I'm gonna call it quits early, gonna head back, grab something to eat, and hopefully get back to the Venetian later tonight.